Welcome to another episode of 8 News Then here on 8 News Now. I'm John Langeler in the present, talking about the past, about something that you'll see in the future. We're talking about notorious figures in Las Vegas history. Geoff Schumacher, who is not notorious, but is certainly well-known and well-versed. Thanks for coming in from the Mob Museum.
Thanks for having me.
We're here to talk about Benny Binion, the life and history of Benny Binion. Of course, the name Binion is still on parts of Las Vegas, downtown, the Horseshoe. But this life of Benny Binion, talk about a larger-than-life character here. So let's talk about it. Benny Binion, what was his experience in Las Vegas, what he did before here? Just overall, tell us about Benny.
You know, Benny Binion is one of the more fascinating characters in Las Vegas history, I think. He fits the prototype of the sort of underworld figure kind of going straight in Las Vegas. But what's interesting about Benny is he never went completely straight, right? I mean, he was able to, with charm and a wink and a nod, he was able to pull off some stuff that's pretty amazing. You know, he started very poor in Texas, outside of Dallas, very poor, and he grew up in a town called Pilot Grove, which doesn't exist anymore. That's how poor, he is. There's a cemetery, and that's it. Yeah. But he got involved with his father. He started following his father around, and his father was a horse trader. He was involved with sort of grifters and all kinds of notorious figures, and Benny became interested in everything that his father was involved in, and he got to meet a lot of characters, on the road, and hustlers and highwaymen, as they say. And part of this was getting involved with gambling and starting to help the gambling operations that were going on around Dallas.
Yeah, I feel like Benny Binion's life is like a Waylon Jennings song. Like, yes. We're rambling through the highways and byways of Texas and making a buck and hustlers and this and that, yep, and saloons and things. But he was a tough dude, and he was not someone to be trifled with.
I never did invest too much money anywhere. I'm not an investor, I'm a gambler. I invest my money in the bankroll.
And the term gambler fits Benny Binion like an old shoe. Solid, comfortable, a little worn around the edges. 77 years young, a Las Vegan for over 30 years, Benny and the Binion family run the downtown Horseshoe Club, but more often than not, you'll find Benny on his Montana ranch. 250 sections of working ranch.
Benny, it is so peaceful up here. You talk about how much you like the casino atmosphere and the gambling, the excitement of all the people, and yet this is an entirely different world.
I don't like this climate.
What don't you like about it? Well,
it ain't but about 2 months out of the year. It's a good climate. Starting in right now. Now by August the 1st, it'll be hot as the desert. And then by November the 1st, it'll be cold as Alaska.
But you're up here a lot.
Yeah.
Why?
Stuck with it.
Oh, come on.
No, I like it. Yeah. I was trotting along behind some horses up here a while back. I was kind of tired, and I said, look at me, I'm a damn fool. I've been trotting along behind these things for 69 years.
You ever going to keep up with them?
Try. Yeah. Do my best.
A lot of people say they'd rather be around horses than other people. What do you think about that?
Oh, no, I like people, too. They's a little good in everybody. But if they ain't no good in them, you don't have to pay no attention to them. Get away from them. In 1947, there's a man came in dressed like $1 million, had his money in his hand like this, just like a dice cheater would work out from under the money, don't you see? And he's dealing off like that, betting the money. So he lost $11,000. And he just went to wringing his hands and talking to the Lord, just having a fit. And I said, my God, I've seen everything. What is this? Well, we got a hold of him and treat him real nice. Says, hold on, and take him back there and set him down. So he told us a story. He's a minister from a city, and he decided he just wanted to do some drinking and gambling. He don't know what happened. He's just come and lost that money. And by the time he lost it, he realized what had happened to him. So we was talking, and he said, I don't know where I'll go back and tell the congregation and ask for forgiveness or what I'll do. Well, I said, I'll tell you what, I'm going to give you $1,000. He didn't have no more money. I was going to give you $1,000 to go home on. And if you don't get along on it, I'll send you some more, don't you see? So I said, don't tell the congregation I don't believe they'll forgive you. I said, the Lord will forgive you. That's the only one that's going to forgive you. So about 6 months, he wrote me a letter with a cashier's check for the $1,000. And he said he never felt better in his life. He'd never told nobody, and he's positive nothing like that ever happened to him again. I'll tell you what, I never did consider anybody's gambling as weakness. A gambler is an over-energetic person. He's not a weak person. He's the best hustler in the world. But if he's weak, he couldn't be that kind of hustler. Just like one day there's a waitress, lost her money in the Horseshoe and told me, he said, give me $15, I got to feed my children. Well, I give her the $15, and my son said, I don't see how she makes it. I said, the hell you don't. I said, you see her get 15 from me, they ain't no telling how many more she's getting 15 from.
Is it just the money? Is it just the money that makes people want to gamble?
No, I think it's the excitement. They like it, you know, it steams them up. Now, I'm talking for the gambler, all right. But I honestly think them slot machines is good for them old ladies. They've been coming in there, some of them, for 20 years. They get them a little scotch and water and sip on it and play them slot machines. They get tired, to go home and rest. And the next day, they get freshened up, come back. They've been doing it forever, and they just seem like me to do better than anybody. I think they do better than the people that come in wheelchairs. I admire them. A person will get out and let somebody push him around, push him up out of that wheelchair. He ain't gonna just sit and die.
Benny, you've seen Las Vegas go through some incredible changes in the last 40 years.
Well, they're in more of a hurry. The reason a lot of people act kind of discourteous and all, they're pushed in a hurry. Now, when I first went to Las Vegas, it was not much business and slow, and everybody knew everybody. It's different. But nowadays, nobody knows nobody. There's too many people come there too fast. I'll tell you what, Las Vegas has never grown like it has without the corporations. If you call that good or bad, and I call it good. I've profited by corporations, bringing in business.
You think the average guy sees the difference?
Well, I don't know. I don't know.
How about the average Las Vegan? People who've been around here for 20 years, you know them, they're friends of yours. What do they say about the change?
Well, some of them old diehards, they didn't want no change. But there ain't no damn way to live in this world without changes, because it's going to change. It might, if we knew how much it's going to change, it might scare us.
What about the immorality of gambling, Benny? A lot of people feel that the gambling's a sin. You shouldn't do it. You think it's immoral?
No, I don't really. I really don't. Now, when we had closed towns where you could control it, if a woman ever come there and complained that her husband was losing the money he should be spending at home, we'd never let him back in. But you can't do that in Las Vegas. I don't know now whether there's any way to control it or not. I'll tell you what happened the other day at Tulsa, Oklahoma. I imagine you get the papers to find out. They raided the biggest country club there was in Tulsa, Oklahoma the other day for a poker game. Now, that's out of line. Don't you think?
As he's getting more involved in this world in Texas, how does that toughness manifest itself?
Yeah, so
justice.
He started in bootlegging, like so many people did during Prohibition, but then he quickly moved on to gambling, and he got into the policy racket, which is what we call the lottery today, and the numbers racket, as they say. And he was involved in that, and then he got into other kinds of illegal gambling. Well, along the way, he killed 2 men. He murdered 2 men in cold blood, basically, who he felt had wronged him in some way, and he claimed self-defense each time. And each time he got off. And it had to do with paying off politicians. It had to do with paying off law enforcement people, doing favors, that kind of thing. And he never served any time for those 2 very serious crimes.
Yeah, murder is about as serious as it gets. It's interesting. We've been talking, Geoff and I, about other organized crime figures with connections to Las Vegas, and I think the flash thought is that there's an Italian connection, right? You think of the movie Casino, you think of, the Godfather movies and the real life of the Italian organized crime outfits that had connections to Las Vegas. But, you're talking about a similar frame of organized crime, just a different category.
Yeah, when you kind of think about what we call the mob, right? The mob is kind of the overarching term for all these different kinds of organized crime groups. There's a subset of that called the mafia, right? And the mafia or the Cosa Nostra would be very much of the Italian American folks who were involved in New York and Chicago and Las Vegas and elsewhere. But you don't have to be Italian to be in the mob, right? And in fact, in the early 20th century, the Jewish mob was huge, right? The Irish mob was huge. So there's all kinds of different ways, permutations of organized crime. And in the case of Benny Binion, it was just, I'm not even sure what the religious or ethnic affiliation is. It was just the people who wanted to make money in gambling business.
Just Texas.
Texas, yeah.
Texas back in the day.
Texas affiliation.
Texas affiliation. That's its own country. So Benny he's focused on money, focused on rackets and all sorts of different things involving just corruption, really.
Yep.
But he ends up in Las Vegas. How does he transition from a life of crime in Texas and in the South, the West, to Las Vegas?
So the way Benny told the story was quite interesting. Things were going, he thought, pretty well in Dallas and Fort Worth for him. But then there was an election in 1946, and his sheriff and his district attorney lost. So basically, the rules of the game had changed. These were reform-minded people who came in, and they were like, we're not going to put up with Benny Binion anymore. And so Benny's like, I think it's time for me to go.
Did he really sort of run Dallas back then?
I would say he had a great deal of influence over the previous administration, and he had paid a lot of money to do that. Hundreds of thousands of dollars were paid to politicians and law enforcement people to keep them in the pocket.
And it was through gambling. What other kind of activities was he involved in?
It was for Benny, it was mostly gambling. I mean, it was such a popular pastime. We have a whole city based on it here, that it kept him pretty busy.
Yeah.
He may have, certainly collecting debts was part of the gambling business. So I suppose loan sharking was part of it as well. There was a lot of rough stuff, that you had to do. But for the most part, he ran gambling operations.
And so he comes to Las Vegas. Once his friends in Texas and Dallas sort of lose their spots, he shifts gears and comes here to Las Vegas. How does he get set up here? How does he get his footprint in Las Vegas in downtown?
He starts working at the Las Vegas Club on Fremont Street, and then he takes an interest in a place called the Westerner, which is not around anymore. But he didn't like his partners at the Westerner, so he decided to go out on his own. And he bought the Eldorado Casino on Fremont Street. This was closed at the time. He got it cheap because it was closed. And then he leased the adjacent Apache Hotel. Apache Hotel has a long history in Las Vegas, really great history, very upscale kind of hotel at the time. And so he kind of put those together as Binion's Horseshoe Club, opened in 1951. And originally, Benny thought it would be a breeze to get a gambling license. And even though Nevada was still kind of laissez-faire about gambling at that time, they did not initially give Benny a license.
Did they know about his past?
They did, because of the Kefauver Committee.
Of course.
So the Kefauver Committee had been holding hearings all over the country, and one of those hearings featured Benny and his exploits in Texas. So Nevada did know about his past, and so he had to come up with sort of a front man for the Binion's Horseshoe for a while, and then he eventually got his license after he paid off enough people in Nevada.
There seems to be a thread here.
Yes.
He brought his experience in Dallas to Las Vegas. But Binion's Horseshoe, how quickly does that become? The Horseshoe's still around, right? Binion's is still a name that is known on Fremont Street downtown. What was his relationship with the rest of Las Vegas once he got settled into the groove of things?
So Binion's Horseshoe was popular almost from the start. It was what they call a carpet joint, meaning they put carpet on the floor. This was kind of a new concept
No sawdust.
at that time. and they had high betting limits. So he really wanted the Horseshoe to be a place where serious gamblers went to play, poker in particular, but also other craps and blackjack and so forth. He wanted the serious gamblers, the real money, to come to Binion's Horseshoe, and they did. He had a lot of connections through Dallas, through all over Texas, through other places, and he was able to attract people to his place and make it kind of a go-to place downtown. And they had good food, he had a great atmosphere, very lively atmosphere, and it worked.
Did he, because he was on Fremont, obviously, downtown, I'm wondering if his larger-than-life sort of persona did for downtown at that time what your Frank Sinatras and the Italian and the mafia families did on Las Vegas Boulevard on the Strip itself. Were those sort of like two similar paths, just different versions of it?
Yeah, I think you're onto something there. I think Benny could be a big fish in a little pond on Fremont Street, right? He might have, if he had gone straight to the Strip, and he's working alongside some of these other big characters, he may have been a little bit lost in the shuffle. But on Fremont Street, he could be a big fish, and he could draw attention to himself and to his casino in a way that that really helped Fremont Street a great deal.
Aside from setting up a casino in Las Vegas, how much of Benny's criminal past ended up in Las Vegas with him in terms of trying to pay off important officials, other criminal activity, intimidation, bullying, whatever the case may be? How much of that made its way with Benny from Texas to Las Vegas?
So really, it's important to say the first thing that happened with Benny after he opened Binion's Horseshoe is feds started investigating him for tax evasion. And so his avoiding of taxes in Texas actually followed him to Nevada. And he was ultimately pled guilty to tax evasion, got a 5-year sentence, and pretty harsh for tax evasion at that time. Ended up in Leavenworth prison in the mid-50s for 4 years. And this was a blow to him because he thought coming to Nevada, he would have a new start as a young family, got a wife and kids, and all growing up in Las Vegas. In that house, that house out on Bonanza Road that's still there, kind of falling apart. And he ends up in prison. So his past followed him here. As far as his activities in Las Vegas and paying people off and so forth, it made it difficult for him to get a license initially. He did ultimately get a license. Then he was convicted of tax evasion, lost his license, had to give up the whole casino to Joe Brown. Joe Brown took it over while he was in prison, and the Binions didn't get control of it again until the early 60s. And that's when Jack Binion, his son, took it over.
Okay. Did you have any encounters with Benny Binion yourself?
I had one.
How would you characterize the interactions with Benny Binion?
It was amazing is what it was. I mean, I was a young reporter. I came here from college in Reno to the Las Vegas Sun newspaper. I was a police reporter, and I was taken around by one of the other reporters, kind of just showing the ropes. And at that time, the police department was at the old City Hall, which is now Zappos. And so we would go in there, and he would introduce me to the detectives and whatnot. And he said, we should go stop by Binion's, because that's what you do. And you go into the coffee shop at Binion's, and there was a table reserved for Benny, and that was his table. And if you were new to town or, you wanted to say hi, you could come up. He was a very friendly guy. So that's exactly what happened. I got an audience of about 10 seconds with Benny Binion, and there were probably some other prominent officials around with him at that table, and I didn't know who they were because I was brand new. But I did get to meet him.
It's so interesting, back in the day when in Las Vegas, if someone ran a casino or owned a casino, they'd be around. You would see them on the casino floor, in the restaurants, and now, because of the corporate influence, it's not always really the case, except in a few unique circumstances. Getting back to Benny Binion. So he gets his gaming license, or his family's now back involved. He serves his time. How does his involvement grow and expand in Las Vegas? You got the Horseshoe, obviously, but what else is he involved in Las Vegas?
Yeah, so one of the things that Benny he was a cowboy, right?
Yeah.
And in the end, he was a cowboy. Yeah. He had a big ranch up in Montana. He loved to go out and ride horses and all of that, and he loved rodeo. And so he was a philanthropist, too. He gave a lot of money to charities in Las Vegas. He gave a lot of money to the rodeo, the National Finals Rodeo in particular. And much later, he persuaded the National Finals Rodeo to move to Nevada, to Las Vegas. That was a huge thing. Think about where the world of rodeoing, if that's a word, is based, right? It's, well, you're Wyoming or Oklahoma or Texas or whatever. That's where the rodeo people are, right? They're not in Las Vegas. But Benny made the point, no, everybody wants to come to Las Vegas, even if you're a cowboy. So let's do the National Finals Rodeo here. And he brought it here. And it's still here today.
Yeah, we just recently lost Rossi Rallencotter, of course, who was with the LVCVA at that time as well, and had another big influence in bringing NFR to Las Vegas. And it's, as you mentioned, it's still here. It's been 40 some odd years. And Benny Binion, being with his past, you would imagine something like NFR he would be involved in. Las Vegas has a Western past. We still have Eldorado days in Las Vegas as well. What else was Benny Binion known for as he establishes himself more in Las Vegas and is more well known around town? He's a character up until his passing, presumably. How does the name live on?
So probably the most far-reaching thing that he did was in 1969. He and his son Jack went up to Reno. They wanted to go up there for a kind of a reunion of Texas poker players. And they go up there and they witness a tournament, a poker tournament. And they're like, my God, this is something we could do at Binion's Horseshoe and make it into something. So in 1970, they hold the first World Series of Poker at Binion's Horseshoe. And it's a relatively small operation the first year, but it grows exponentially over the ensuing years to the point where it is now literally a World Series of poker.
Yeah.
People from all over the world are participating, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of players, and they ultimately sell it, and it's now you can, or at least until recently, I think you could watch it on ESPN.
Yeah, it was on TV.
It's on TV. I mean, it's everywhere, and it's become this wild phenomenon, way beyond Benny's ever what he could have dreamed of.
Yeah, I mean, I think when people who are more new to Las Vegas, when you think of Binion's, you think of Binion's Horseshoe, of course, and the case with the $1 million in it and everything else downtown. But yeah, the World Series of Poker is another important thread that, as you mentioned, is still around to this day, and it kind of continues that Western theme of his upbringing, of his time in Texas. At the heart of it, Benny Binion was a cowboy, and I think that sort of shows itself in his business and his operations and his legacy.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's interesting is that Horseshoe brand is now on the Strip after all these years.
The old Bally's and the old MGM.
Bally's, the original MGM, Bally's is now the Horseshoe, and that brand has finally made it to the Strip. It's kind of interesting. Jack Binion went to the debut of that name, that brand rebranding, and it's just very fitting.
What happened to, obviously Benny Binion passes away, but the family name, the legacy, the companies, how did all of that sort of shake out as the years up until present day?
So Jack Binion, his oldest son, got very involved in gambling operations outside of Nevada, Mississippi, and other places like that. His daughter Becky kind of inherited Binion's Horseshoe. Things did not go particularly well, and they end up selling. His son Ted was either died of a drug overdose or was murdered, depending on your perspective. And that was quite a high-profile trial in the late 1990s. And so, the Binion, I don't know if there is a Binion working in the casino industry in Las Vegas today. Certainly not a direct descendant.
But the name is still around, for sure.
The name is still around. You still have Binion's on Fremont Street.
Sure.
It's owned by somebody else, but it's still Binion's. And a lot of the original decor is still in there. So you still have a little bit.
So finally, just again, the character of Benny Binion and his mark on Las Vegas. What is, when people look back on Benny Binion, how should they look back on his time in Las Vegas and what he brought to the city?
I think that Benny did a lot for Las Vegas from a promotional standpoint. He brought a lot of people here with the appeal of Binion's Horseshoe, with bringing creating the World Series of Poker, with bringing NFR here. Think about the promotional heft that he brought. This cowboy who grew up in Pilot Grove, Texas, ends up playing this major role in the growth of Las Vegas. That's pretty interesting in itself. There's also the sort of the darker side we can't forget, which is that, he
killed people?
Killed people, and he paid off politicians, and there are some details of his life in Las Vegas that a person could dig into and find some questionable activities.
Like?
Well, I mean, he was accused of paying Sheriff Ralph Lamb, and it was called a loan, but Ralph Lamb was never obligated to repay the loan. That's
the best kind of loan.
Also known as, yeah, exactly. It has another name.
Yeah.
And so those guys were close friends. You could see it, call it a gift. But the point is that, he was obviously going to get favors for that treatment. So there's a lot of that stuff.
It's part of Las Vegas's past, one way or the other, good or bad. It's a part of the past, and it's unique to it. You've got Frank Sinatra and the Rat Pack on the Strip, and you've got the Cowboys and Benny Binion downtown. Geoff Schumacher, thank you very much for talking with me here about Benny Binion. Please go to the Mob Museum. They've got a lot more on Benny and everybody else that's interesting in Las Vegas in the past. It's well worth your time. Thank you for your time watching 8 News Then, and we'll see you next time. Take care.